All right, we're back. Real time, because we're streaming here on live on the internet. We have an opportunity to through an analytic program to see where folks are popping in from around the country, and kind of interesting. We did an interview, or I always refer to America's Voice Now as we, but it's really me. I was graciously invited to participate on the Survival podcast with Jack Spirko the other day on an interview with him, and it's generated a lot of traffic on our site. Those of you who are joining us from Survival podcast, welcome. Thank you. Love to hear you. Love to see you here. You can listen to that entire audio interview that we did by visiting America's Voice Now or our Facebook or website, and I'll get you a link to it if you're interested. It was a great interview. I had a great time talking with Jack. He's an extremely knowledgeable man, and very, very well liked in the community. Leans a lot towards the prepping and the preparation and the self-reliance side of things, which is a perfect tie-in to what we talk about. I know there's some people that don't want to mix politics with that, but politics, as Pericles told us, is not something to be avoided, right? Because you can avoid politics, but just because you don't want to involve yourself in politics doesn't mean that politics is not involving you. It is. And so to coin and to utilize a phrase of Ayn Rand, you can avoid reality, but you can't avoid the reality or the consequence of avoiding reality. You can pretend that train's not coming, but let me tell you something. At some point in time, you're either going to have to get off the track or you're going to get run over. And, our founders told us very, very clearly and repeatedly that an awake and aware and involved public, the we part of we the people, was the only thing that would keep our republic together and keep us from descending into tyranny. And so when I look at the vast majority of the low information folks out there that don't want to know or are incapable of thinking beyond their next 30 seconds, I'm frustrated by that, because it means that we don't have an active and motivated constituency in America. We don't have an active we the people. We have 40% of America that is basically on antidepressants. 40%. I mean, there's something wrong with that. There can't be that many crazy people in the country. Then we have another 50% that vote out of the largesse of the Treasury for their own personal gain, i.e. food stamps or whatever the case may be, some kind of welfare program or some kind of benefit they get from the entitlement programs. Then we also have, and there's some overlap there, of course, but then we also have those people who are invested in big government because it's how they make their living. And these are the people who work for government or work for an agency that works for government, or they work for a company that is almost exclusively alive because they're on the government dole, which leaves a fairly scant percentage of the rest of us who aren't in some way, shape, or form co-opted, coerced, corrupted, or compromised. Some days I feel like we're holding back, like we're trying to empty the Atlantic Ocean with a teacup. The story I wanted to tackle here was that the articles that are out today from another Snowden revelation, by the way, are that we are in a kind of a sticky wicket here. We've heard that the media giants and the industry giants in the internet arena were working with the NSA to monitor and tap into all of the information that's out there on the internet, including all the email and the information that's related to your searches on the internet and things like that. Government surveillance in general, right? And we know because Google and Yahoo and AOL and Facebook have all admitted that they've participated. However, they participated under court order, which gave them, plausible deniability, right? To say, hey, listen, we didn't do this voluntarily. They came to us with a court order and said, we got access to your network and we want it now. AT&T and Verizon are the same deal with the cell phone monitoring, right? However, the story that's out today, and it's in the Washington Post, and it's in the Wall Street Journal, and it's in Foreign Policy, the cable magazine, and it's in the Washington Post again, is that NSA has actually infiltrated links into Yahoo and Google data centers worldwide. Now, that should come as no surprise, except for the fact that in this instance, Google and Yahoo are saying, we didn't know about this. Now, the first time around, they said, they tried to get around it by saying, we didn't want this, but we knew about it. Now they're actually saying, we really didn't even know this was happening. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a frightening place for us to find ourselves. Because what that means is that the government is knowingly, willfully operating in an extra-constitutional fashion. Now, you know, I get the fact that there's surveillance going on and it's the war on terror and all that nonsense, which I disagree with totally. Personally, I think if we wanted to end the war on terror, one of the best things that we could do would be to pull out of places where we are as hated as we are. We're talking about Afghanistan and Iraq and Pakistan. You know, there are a ton of reasons why we're there. But to be honest with you, there aren't any that really are justifiable. The truth is we're there for, you know, because we have to constantly keep a war going to keep the treasury floating around. We have a corporatocracy that benefits from war, and they constantly promote and push it because they need the revenue stream that comes from it. When governments are at war, they spend incredible amounts of money. Got a Federal Reserve that's happy that the government's at war because, quite frankly, they get to print more. And they get to, I mean, the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve right now is at $3.6 trillion. When President Obama took office, it was at less than $800 billion. Wow. I mean, when you look at the numbers associated to that, we went from less than $800 billion to a balance sheet of $3.6 trillion. It's quadrupled. And at some point, the Federal Reserve is going to have to unwind out of all that. The concern, of course, is that inflation will go bloop. Now, let's not deny that inflation is already here. The government tells us it's not, but go look at the price of milk, eggs, butter, and a piece of steak. You pretty much agree. Look at the price of everything you touch. Funny how, by the way, when they wanted to try to twist the way in which inflation was measured, they pulled energy and foodstuffs out of the numbers, which basically are two of the biggest expenses that the average American has: food and energy, right? Getting to and from work and heating your home and so forth and so on. In this case, the NSA has infiltrated the links that the fiber optic links that Yahoo and Google data centers use worldwide. And here's part of the problem. They're not only doing it illegally, but they're doing it overseas. And their argument is, if we do it overseas, if we tap into it, and it's not on domestic U.S. soil, whether it's in a subterranean fiber optic connection between here and Europe or wherever, then we're not subject to U.S. law. Oh, boy. So what we've got is an NSA that is, and of course the president came out the other day and said he had no idea the NSA was monitoring Angela Merkel's phone and the president of Brazil and the president of France, Hollande. Come on. If that's in fact the case, then that's malfeasance on his part for not being captain of the ship and knowing that his crew is going completely bonkers downstairs. If he did know, it's malfeasance in office because he has no right to subject the American citizenry to unconstitutional search and seizure. In either event, it's criminal malfeasance. In this case, the revelation here is that the National Security Agency has secretly, and therefore illegally, because if the FISA court isn't aware of it, who's watching the watchers? that they have secretly broken into the main communication links that connect Yahoo and Google data centers around the world. Now, this was another Edward Snowden revelation. By tapping these links, the agency has positioned itself to collect at will from hundreds of millions of user accounts, many of them belonging to Americans. According to a top-secret accounting report dated January 9th of 2013, the NSA Acquisitions Directorate sends millions of records every day from internal Yahoo and Google networks to data warehouses at Fort Meade, Maryland. In the preceding 30 days, the report said that the field collectors had processed and sent back, listen to these numbers, 181,280,466 new records, including metadata. Remember, metadata is the capsule. That's the envelope, right? Who sent it? When did they send it? Where did it go? Where did it get received? Who was the recipient? Where was he when he got it? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're using a new, this is the revelation of another new tool. This one's called Muscular. Not even sure I like that name and the connotation that it brings up. We all knew about Prism, but this one's called Muscular. And it's operated jointly, and here's the rub, by the way, now. It's operated jointly by the NSA and the GCHQ. Now, I've exposed the GCHQ and the NSA connection before. GCHQ is the NSA in the UK, okay? I encourage you to start doing your own homework on this, by the way. I posted a link up to a Washington Post section that is exclusively deals with the NSA secrets and all of this scandal that's been going on. You can find great information, from in the Greenwald stuff originally that came out of the UK and on the Washington Post, who has been working domestically in concert with the Guardian newspaper in England to expose all this stuff. Now, there's a lot of people out there that will sit there and characterize Snowden as a traitor to the United States of America. I disagree. And I think as more and more and more of this comes out, people who truly recognize the danger that we're in, where government is capturing all kinds of information about their own citizenry, you have to agree that the balance scales of traitor or and I don't use the word hero, I mean traitor or patriot, is changing. And the reason I say that is because we have a right to know. We have a right to know because we have a right to stop it when it's out of control. And I don't think anyone who is liberty or freedom-minded or even just moderately curious would disagree when I say that this is out of control. If you've got an NSA that's operating so exclusively separate from the president, where they are monitoring the telephone calls and are planting electronic and eavesdropping bugs and taps in embassies and in the presidential telephone lines and things like that of our allies. Now, look, I'm not foolish enough to believe that we don't spy on them and they don't spy on us. That is true, and no one would deny that. But the depth and the scope of this is so mammoth that I don't think anyone can deny that something's wrong here. When our president declares, I read about it in the paper like you did, for the umpteenth time, by the way. I mean, how many scandals is it that he's going to read about in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times like the rest of us do? If that is the case, what exactly is that guy doing up there? I mean, what does the president do all day? What kind of feedback does he get? I can tell you this. For my years in corporate America, if I were the leader of a corporation and scandal after scandal after scandal kept breaking in department after department after department that I was ultimately responsible for and had to go out there and stand in front of the press and answer about, I would have an all-hands-on-deck meeting. And I would say, I want to know everything. And anything that's going on here that I don't know about, that person is going to be summarily either charged or terminated. And we're going to get to the bottom of this, and I want to know all about whatever's going on. Everybody's going to start answering it to me until we get a hold of the tiger here. Now, I grant you that Mr. Obama is probably unlikely to do that because he doesn't want to know. He wants plausible deniability. But I got to tell you, that's running a little low on the petrol meter at this point. I think Americans are getting tired of hearing how little our president actually knows about what his administration is responsible for. And at some point in time, he didn't know about Obamacare either, and the collapse of the website, and the fact that it wasn't ready, and the fact that, your policies were going to be canceled. He didn't know about Fast and Furious until he read about it in the papers. And then he turns around and passes an executive order that protects Eric Holder from prosecution for criminal and civil contempt of Congress, excuse me. There's just too many of these examples where the president says, I don't know. So there's two ways we can look at this. We can either take him on his word and say he didn't know, at which point that's malfeasance in office for not knowing. Or he did know and he's lying to us, which is malfeasance in office. Furthermore, putting that aside for a moment, if he's actually correct and he didn't know and he's guilty of malfeasance for not knowing, we then have a national problem. And we have a constitutional crisis. And that is that we have rogue agencies with an unlimited budget, unlimited resources, and unlimited ability to tap into every phone, every home, every individual, every dossier on every American. And that's a dangerous place for us to be. I hearken back to segments 1 and 2. Where we talked about defining the descent of the United States into a state of fascism. Every fascist government in history, every totalitarianistic, every authoritarian government in history has always done one thing. They have gathered data on their citizens for the creation of lists of people so that they can profile them. This group is for us. This group is against us. How do we get after that group? I dare say with the level of monitoring and surveillance that we now have in the United States of America and the dossiers that are being built and coordinated now between the new Obamacare data hub, where you're required to basically tell them everything, including down to whether or not you like red stripes or blue stripes on your socks and whether you prefer boxers or briefs, all of that is being handed off. That which they cannot get through tapping into Google and Yahoo and AOL and Facebook and every other organization out there, which they can't get from tapping into your cell phone calls on Verizon and your landline calls through whoever your home telephone carrier is, they're getting through the data hub. I mean, look, with that kind of profile data, there's nothing that you cannot find out about somebody. And then it's either used to coerce, co-opt, corrupt, or compromise that individual. Or prosecute, persecute, or, like the list just goes on and on and on. I've challenged my listener base, and I'm going to ask you again. If any one of you out there can come up with one legitimate value that you will benefit from as a result of all of this data being collected on you, email me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. I'm asking you to email me. Email me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. If you can give me one legitimate benefit that you will get, you personally will receive, as a result of these organizations having full dossiers on you where they know every secret you've ever had. I haven't had a single taker yet, and I've been challenging this out there for 6 months. And I'm willing to bet we'll go another 6 months, and I still won't have a response. Because you can't defend the indefensible. Now to find out that it's bad enough that under the PRISM program, which the court was aware of, that they essentially used secret orders to force these organizations like Yahoo and Google, AOL, Facebook, and all these other media organizations, including AT&T and Verizon and all the phone companies, to give them this information. Now we find that they have actually gone outside the court's knowledge, and they're tapping into this anyway, in a way that even these companies themselves are not aware of. By the way, for the record, right now the estimate is that the United States has lost $35 billion in business because nation-states, and foreign companies, including a lot of American companies, are getting their data off of U.S. servers. It's causing an industry rout. This revelation certainly will not help. If the NSA is in fact doing what we know they're doing, which is exposed constantly, and every time we get them in front of Congress for a hearing, they say, no, we're not doing that. Then the truth comes out that they are doing that, and they go back in and they say, well, we weren't doing it, but we couldn't really tell you that because it's all secret. And hey, you know what? It's inexcusable. It's nefarious. It's dangerous. It's authoritarian. It's extra-constitutional, unconstitutional. It's behavior that is Machiavellian in its nature. The ends justify the means. And this is not a nation where the ends justify the means. Not now, nor has it ever been. We've never lived on that principle. And it's inexcusable to think we should. This article is up by the Washington Post. There's about 5 of them up on our Facebook page. I encourage you to go out there and visit them. Take a look at what's going on. I can't go over it all here because I'd be here all morning. In fact, we'd probably be here until midnight tonight. There's so much data. There's so much involvement. There's so much skullduggery. It cannot be good for America. Anyone who has that level of knowledge and power is dangerous to our liberty. They have become an exigent danger to our national security as a nation. Okay, thanks for joining with us this morning. Now that I've wrecked your morning, please feel free to join us. You can find what we do every morning by visiting our website at americasvoicenow.org. There we post up stories, and every show that we do, we post them up in our recent news links. We've got articles up there and all kinds of stuff in our daily news links, and some articles that I write and things up there as well. You can also find us on our Facebook page, where we post up all kinds of news articles and stories as well, and video podcasts of what we do every day. You can go there by going to facebook.com/America's Voice Now. And then you can also find us on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. Communicate with me. Give me feedback on whether you like or dislike what we talk about, what I talk about every day. You can reach me by sending me an email to mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow morning.